There are over 50 million trips between Los Angeles and Las Vegas every year. On a typical Friday, there are 80 flights out of 5 different Southern California airports, but the vast majority of people make this trip by driving on I-15. Well, Brightline West, the high-speed rail service that's gonna connect these two cities, got another step closer to reality this month. So today we're gonna dig into what we know about the service. We'll talk about station locations, competing airport locations, how LA's polycentric development pattern and truly horrendous traffic make every mode of travel worse. And we're definitely going to talk about this nation's finest dining establishment. All about Brightline West and cheesecake coming up next. This is CityNerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. Viewer suggested topics always welcome, and this is one I've gotten a lot of requests for, but if I'm being honest, this video was coming either way. Okay, so first, let's talk about what's new with Brightline West, because the idea of a high-speed rail line connecting greater LA to Las Vegas has been around for years. For a long time, the line was planned to run from Vegas to Victorville, which is a pretty underwhelming terminus. Well, the Surface Transportation Board has now approved a modified alignment that runs in the median of I-15 and terminates in Rancho Cucamonga, which is also not optimal, but at least gets you well into the Inland Empire and is planned to terminate right at a Metrolink station. I'm not going to spend much time quibbling over the freeway median alignment. It isn't going to be optimal from an operations perspective, but it does mean minimal property acquisition, which means faster timeline to opening, and also, unlike the Florida Brightline, no at-grade crossings. The result is, Brightline West is likely to be this country's first true high-speed rail project to open. The initial segment of California high-speed rail from Merced to Bakersfield is showing 2030 as the earliest possible opening date, but Brightline West is expected to break ground imminently and take 4 years. And I can understand if you're skeptical about that timeline, but I'd just point out that the Florida Brightline Orlando segment did open sooner than I think anyone reasonably expected. Keep in mind, there is no rail service between LA and Las Vegas today. The Amtrak Desert Wind, which stopped in Vegas in the middle of its run between LA and Salt Lake City, was discontinued in 1997. Not exactly a high-speed service, it made the run in about 7 hours, and if you wanted to take the train to Vegas on a Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, you were just plain out of luck. So Brightline West intends to improve on the Desert Wind just slightly. According to the Surface Transportation Board decision on November 15th, 2023, current plans are to operate 50 trains a day, 25 in each direction, between Las Vegas and Rancho Cucamonga, basically every 45 minutes between 5:30 a.m. and around midnight, and they'll operate at speeds up to 180 miles an hour, making the run in 2 hours 10 minutes, which is something like twice as fast as the typical drive time on I-15 between those 2 points. So what I would usually do here is set up a race between 3 people who are traveling from a specific location in the LA area to Vegas by air, by car, and by rail, and compare their overall experiences, costs, and travel times. Kind of as a real-world illustration of the dynamics in my triangle diagram, but this one is different because of how polycentric and spread out the LA metro area is, and because of the location of the proposed Brightline station. Because one of the great benefits of high-speed rail should be that, unlike an airport, the station is usually right in the center of the city. But as proposed, the Brightline station is actually going to be further out from central LA than any of the 5 airports that serve the region. So to analyze how all this plays out, I want to look at trips leaving the LA metro area at the most popular time to head to Vegas, which is after work on a Friday, so I'm calling that 5 p.m. Pacific time. For our destination, I wanted something right in the middle of the Vegas Strip, so I'm calling that Caesar's Palace. Choosing starting points in SoCal is a bit more tricky. I wanted to test a variety of locations in the LA/Inland Empire combined statistical area, and I wanted to be able to talk about all 5 airports. Also, I wanted to randomize the locations somehow, so I wasn't giving preference to any particular mode of travel. So what I did was divide the area into 5 sectors, organized around the 5 airports, and within each sector, I wanted to find the precise location that was most reflective of the refined tastes of the type of person who would head to Vegas on a Friday evening. So once I settled on that concept, everything fell into place pretty easily. I really just needed the highest rated outlet of America's premier fine dining establishment in each sector. Honestly, doing this research was a bit of a chore because there are a lot of locations, and I had to grapple with the fact that there are actually people who don't leave a 5-star review of this place. The chilaquiles were mid. Imagine living in Southern California and having such little appreciation for authentic Mexican food. People don't appreciate top-notch service either, but luckily, management has the good sense to just ignore the haters. Okay, let's start with location 1 in the LAX sector. This is Redondo Beach, the highest rated location in the whole region, chilaquiles notwithstanding. So a few recurring themes here. Just about any route you take from anywhere in the metro area, driving to Vegas, is gonna take you out the Cajon Pass on I-15, and just about all the worst traffic you encounter on the whole trip is gonna be within the LA metro area itself. I just want to pause for a moment and point out that there was a time when LA was considered a paradise of unfettered automobility, an expansive network of interconnected freeways with tons of capacity so everyone could easily go wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. Well, it's 2023 now, and if you want to go to Vegas from Redondo Beach, plan on 5 to 7 hours. Next, let's talk air travel, but first, I need some kind of assumption about how early to get to the airport to account for getting through security and walking to the gate. Airlines themselves are super conservative and will tell you to arrive 2 hours early for a domestic flight, which seems like kind of a waste of time, even if you're checking a bag. I know some people will go as low as like 40 minutes. I think that's courting disaster. So I'm gonna say an hour and a half for LAX because that airport is a nightmare, and an hour 15 for the other 4. This is important to know because you can't just show up at an airport and get on the next plane. You have to choose your flight and book in advance. So for everything I'm gonna talk about here, we're going on Friday, March 1st, and choosing the first flight that we can reasonably expect to make. For our location in the LAX sector, that's gonna be a Spirit Airlines flight at 7:35, getting into the gate at Harry Reid International at 8:39 p.m. On the arrival into the trip, I'm saying 20 minutes to disembark and summon a ride while you're walking to the ride-hail waiting area, and then plan on 25 minutes to get to Caesars. So you're arriving at the hotel at 9:24 p.m. Note that you can take transit from the airport, but the trip takes longer and it runs at kind of an abysmal frequency. I've got thoughts on that, but I'd just be repeating myself. For the train, we also have to do some planning ahead because you will almost certainly want to buy advanced tickets. For this, I'm going to take the Surface Transportation Board documentation at face value and assume the trains run every 45 minutes all day, starting at 5:30 a.m. If we're being literal, then our departures of interest out of Rancho Cucamonga are going to be 5:30, 6:15, 7 o'clock, 7:45, and 8:30 p.m. Unlike the airlines, Brightline says show up 15 minutes before your departure, so that's gonna help, but the problem is getting to the station from just about anywhere in the greater LA area. If you're gonna drive from Redondo Beach, plan on up to 3 hours. You'd hope there was a transit option that bypassed all the congestion, but this is LA. It's also gonna be 3 hours and involves a local bus, the J-Line BRT, and the San Bernardino Metrolink. Second largest city in the world's largest economy, and it takes 3 hours to get to the train station. 10 out of 10, no notes. Anyway, you're gonna end up on the 8:30 train, which gets you into the Las Vegas Brightline station at 10:40 p.m. The Las Vegas station doesn't get you exactly to the heart of the strip, but it's reasonably close, and it's going to be very quick to disembark and catch a ride hail. So I've got 25 minutes overall to get to Caesars, putting you there at 11:05 p.m. Okay, let's go to Canoga Park in the San Fernando Valley. Plan on up to 6 hours 40 minutes if you want to drive to Vegas. Note though that if you're in the valley, you have a pretty good alternate route north through Santa Clarita. For this location, I'm going to assume flying out of Burbank, although LAX could be a better choice just because there are more flight options. It's up to an hour 10 to drive to the Burbank airport and a bit longer for transit, of course. So the earliest flight you can get is a Southwest at 8:10. That'll get you into Harry Reid at 9:20 and to your hotel at 10:05, so almost certainly better than driving. For the Brightline, it's up to 3 hours to drive to the station, and the transit is just comically bad. It's 3 different buses just to get to the the Cal State LA station east of downtown, and then the Metrolink, but either way, you'll end up on the same train that ultimately gets you to Caesars at 11:05. Let's move to Cerritos, south of LA. Driving gets slightly better, and now you're looking at a top end of 6.5 hours, so 11:30 p.m. Flying, the good news is you're fairly close to Long Beach Airport, and I'm showing a 24-minute drive at most. Transit, over an hour. I'm not even mad at this point. Either way, you're going to be on a Southwest flight at 7:55, and that's going to get you to Caesars at 9:45. To catch the train, it's up to 2 hours 20 minutes to drive there, and to the surprise of absolutely no one, transit takes longer. But the shorter driving trip will actually get you on an earlier train, the 7:45, and that puts you at Caesars at 10:20 p.m. So you might be able to pick up on a theme here. Brightline is going to be faster than driving because nearly all the driving trips to Las Vegas have to go through Rancho Cucamonga anyway, and the train is much faster from that point. Incidentally, did you know there's a Cajon Pass rail fanning location? Now you do. Let's go to the happiest place on earth, and by that I mean the world's finest restaurant. Driving, same as Cerritos, 4.5 to 6.5 hours. For flying, it's a 14 to 26 minute drive to John Wayne Airport, or an hour 16 on transit. So you're probably going to want to drive if you want to catch the 7:25 Southwest flight, which will get you into Harry Reid at 8:35 p.m. and to Caesars at 9:20. To get to the Brightline station, plan on 2 hours 20 minutes driving, which will put you on the 7:45 Brightline that gets you into Vegas at 9:55 and to Caesars at 10:20. If you insist on taking transit to Rancho Cucamonga, that's almost 3 hours on a variety of transit vehicles, and you're going to end up on a later train. Okay, in a minute, I'm going to get to a couple of very interesting cases. The finest restaurant in the Inland Empire, which is located very close to the Brightline station, and downtown LA, which sadly lacks an outlet of this particular fine dining establishment, but theoretically should be ground zero for intercity rail service. But first, brief reminder to click on all the usual stuff. Comments, my current policy is Thursday morning, I read and respond to whatever YouTube displays at the top of the comments section, and in keeping with the MO of this channel, I only read the top 10. Connect on the apps and consider becoming a patron if you want to support directly. And also, if you care about improving passenger rail in the US, this holiday season, consider becoming a member of the Rail Passengers Association. They do good advocacy work on Capitol Hill and with the various agencies, and they are geared toward expanding the US passenger rail network and frequencies. Membership even comes with a couple perks, and you can gift one. Just saying. And just so you know, I'm not getting compensated for doing this promo, unless you count feeling good about yourself as compensation. Okay, so the story here is kind of straightforward. If travel time is your primary consideration, you're gonna fly out of all the locations we talked about so far, and driving to Vegas is gonna be your worst option. There are other reasons you might drive, like if you really absolutely need a car while you're there, I guess that's a consideration. Although I've visited Vegas more times than I can count, and it has never once occurred to me to rent a car since driving there is terrible, and the self-parking at all the resorts is a total cluster. But also, if it's group travel, it might be economical just to all drive up in a single car. I'm not judging. But you are talking about upwards of 6 hours of having to sit there paying attention to the road, being annoyed by traffic, and not really being able to pre-function at all. And that's probably where Brightline is going to compete. It's going to be much faster than driving between the Cajon Pass and Vegas. Someone else is going to be doing the driving, and I imagine there's going to be a bar car. Okay, with that in mind, let's look at our last sector, basically the Inland Empire, where our top-rated restaurant location is actually right on Main Street in the Victoria Gardens Lifestyle Center in Rancho Cucamonga. This is going to be, by far, our best location for driving to Vegas because this is the one place where you don't have to fight through all the LA traffic just to get to the Cajon Pass because you're already there. Drive time to Caesars is going to be up to 5 hours, which actually starts to sound competitive with the other options. For air travel, you're going to fly out of Ontario International, just a 10 to 20 minute drive away, or you can take transit, which is, any guesses? Oh yeah, it's 3 times as long. Either way though, the first flight you can catch is the 7:40 Southwest, which is going to get you into Harry Reid at 8:45 and to your hotel by 9:30 p.m. Probably not really faster than driving. Okay, so now maybe the Brightline finally has its moment because Victoria Gardens is literally a 15-minute drive to the station. Miraculously, Omnitrans Route 82 is also 15 minutes, but you have to wait 40 minutes for it. So I am gonna say you can catch the 5:30 p.m. Brightline, which gets into Vegas at 7:40, and you're at your hotel a bit before 8 p.m. So now, finally, the train beats the other two options by like an hour and a half. But this does raise the question, do you literally have to live at the Victoria Gardens Lifestyle Center for the train to come out on top when it comes to travel time? Well, to help answer this, let's go to the one place that should be the most competitive possible location for high-speed rail, and that's the region's main transit hub, LA Union Station. This is going to be very bad for driving. It's not as far west as a couple of the other locations we looked at, but because of where Union Station is situated, you have to fight through all the downtown traffic on your way out to the Cajon Pass. So it ends up being a 6.5-hour drive to Vegas. Flying Burbank Airport is going to be easier to get to, and shockingly, your best bet probably is going to be transit. The 508 Metrolink Ventura County line will get you there at 5:38 in plenty of time to catch the 7 p.m. Southwest flight, landing at Harry Reid at 8:05 and getting you to Caesars before 9 p.m. For Brightline, you could drive, but that's going to get you into Rancho Cucamonga much later than if you just took the Metrolink San Bernardino line, which runs an express at 5:26, getting you into RC at 6:30 p.m. That puts you on the 7 p.m. train to Vegas, arriving at 9:10 and getting you to Caesars a little after 9:30 p.m. So on travel time, that's not going to beat flying out of Burbank. What would beat flying is if you could get to the Brightline station in time to catch the 6:15 train, which seems doable, if Metrolink ran a dedicated nonstop right at 5 p.m., or really every 45 minutes to sync up with the Brightline schedule. Or even better, electrify the line so Brightline can run all the way into Union Station, but I don't know if there are any plans to do that. I will say that if you live east of downtown LA and your location is convenient to the San Bernardino line, the Brightline is going to be pretty competitive, especially the further you get from Burbank Airport. Okay, so is Brightline West an optimal high-speed rail service? It isn't going to run at 200 miles an hour. It's going to have some slightly wonky geometry due to being constructed in a freeway median, but it is going to hit 180 for long stretches. Do I wish it went all the way into Union Station? Sure, but this is the US. We just don't want to do that many good things all at once. There is a plan to connect Brightline West to California high-speed rail. The connection is called the High Desert Corridor, which would get you to Palmdale and then into Union Station whenever that segment of California high-speed rail actually gets built. It's still going through environmental, so maybe next century. So in the near term, Brightline to the Inland Empire is going to be the thing that actually exists. Is it going to beat flying on travel time? Not for most locations, but if you're like me, you're probably going to prefer the high-speed rail travel experience to flying. Is the travel time going to be better than driving, which is how 85% of LA to Las Vegas trips happen today? Yeah, Brightline is going to be better basically anywhere you're coming from. Are people going to use the service? Well, I do think we are actually going to find out, which is exciting in itself, but also it does seem like Brightline is betting on it as well, and that's reason for optimism. Okay, that's your glass half full take on LA to Las Vegas high-speed rail. Thanks for watching, and thanks as always to the patrons for your direct support. It really helps keep this channel humming along. Keep the great topic suggestions coming. I'll be back with a new episode next week, and I'll see you then.